I said no once in 4 years, one single no, one refusal, one boundary, one time I chose what I wanted over what he preferred. And everything changed, not dramatically, not obviously. Not in a way I could point to and say this is abuse, this is wrong, but something fundamental shifted. The warmth disappeared, the patience evaporated. The kindness I'd believed was unconditional revealed itself as contingent, as something I had to earn through constant agreement, through perpetual yes, through never refusing anything he wanted. That one no showed me the truth of what I'd been calling love. Showed me I wasn't loved for who I was loved for how easy I made his life, for how little I required, for how completely I accommodated. And the moment I stopped accommodating, the love stopped too. The no wasn't dramatic, wasn't about anything important, wasn't a major disagreement or fundamental conflict. It was small, simple. The kind of thing that shouldn't matter, that shouldn't change anything, that in a healthy relationship would be absorbed, accepted, moved past without issue. But in my relationship, that small no became the dividing line, became the before and after, became the moment I learned that his love had terms, had conditions, had a price I'd been paying without realizing I was paying it. And the price was yes, always yes, immediate, yes, enthusiastic, yes, yes, without hesitation, yes, without consideration of what I wanted, yes, that put his preferences above mine every single time. I'm 51, I left 18 months ago, and I'm still processing the weight of that realization, still untangling what I thought was love from what was actually conditional approval, still learning to say no without fear, without expecting punishment, without waiting for love to disappear. The 4 years I spent with him trained me thoroughly, trained me to say yes automatically, to accommodate reflexively, to prioritize his wants over mine without thinking, and unlearning that training, rebuilding the muscle of refusal, relearning that no is a complete sentence, has been harder than leaving, harder than anything I expected. If you've ever said no to someone you loved and watched them change, if you've seen warmth turn to coldness over a single refusal, if you've learned that someone's love was conditional on your agreement, on your accommodation, on your perpetual yes, if you've ever realized you were loved not for who you are, but for how easy you make someone's life, you already know what I'm describing. You already know the devastation of discovering love had terms you didn't know you were agreeing to. And maybe seeing it named, seeing the mechanism exposed, will help you trust that you weren't wrong to say no, weren't wrong to want something different, weren't wrong to discover that conditional love isn't love at all. We met when I was 47, he was 50, I'd been single for 5 years after a long marriage. That ended amicably, was comfortable alone, had built a life I like, had friends, hobbies, routines that worked for me. Wasn't looking for a relationship, wasn't lonely, wasn't desperate, was content, met him through mutual friends. He seemed kind, stable, interested. We started dating slowly, carefully. He was attentive, thoughtful, asked questions, listened to answers, seemed genuinely interested in knowing me, understanding me, being with me. The first year was good, felt easy, felt comfortable, felt like partnership. We both had established lives, careers. Didn't need to build everything from scratch, just had to figure out how our existing lives fit together. He was accommodating initially, flexible, said yes to things I suggested, joined me for activities I enjoyed, seemed happy to participate in my life, seemed like he wanted to know me, wanted to be part of what I loved. I did the same for him, said yes to his suggestions, joined him for things he enjoyed, tried to show interest in his life, his hobbies, his world. The accommodation felt mutual, felt balanced, felt like what healthy adults do when building relationship. Year 2, we talked about moving in together. He suggested it, said we spent most nights together anyway, said it made practical sense. I had some hesitation, liked my own space, liked my independence, liked having a place that was entirely mine, but I agreed. Thought it was the natural progression. Thought resistance would be irrational. Thought this is what people do when relationships are serious. We moved into his place. He'd owned it longer, had more space. Made more financial sense. I gave up my apartment, brought my things, merged my life into his. Living together revealed patterns I hadn't noticed while dating. Small things, preferences he had that became requirements once we shared space. He liked the house quiet in the mornings, no music, no television, no conversation before coffee, which seemed reasonable at first, seemed like normal morning routine preference. Except his version of quiet meant I couldn't move freely, couldn't make noise, couldn't exist loudly. I started tiptoeing, moving silently, leaving early for work just to avoid disturbing his morning peace. Gradually, his preference became my rule. His need for quiet mornings became my responsibility to provide them. He liked dinner at 6:30, exactly 6:30, not 6 or 7, 6:30. Said he'd always eaten at that time. Said his blood sugar required consistency. Said eating at the same time daily was healthier, which seemed reasonable, seemed like normal adult preference for routine. Except it meant my schedule had to accommodate his dinner time meant. I had to be home by 6, had to have dinner ready by 6:30, meant my work, my commitments, my life had to organize around that fixed point. Gradually, his dinner time became my obligation, his preference became my requirement, his routine became my job to maintain. These patterns accumulated slowly, imperceptibly, each one seeming minor, each one seeming like normal cohabitation compromise. I accommodated, adjusted, organized my life around his preferences, told myself this is what partnership means, this is compromise, this is how adults live together. Didn't recognize that compromise was flowing one direction, that I was doing all the accommodating, that he remained exactly as he'd been while I reshaped my entire life around his needs, his schedule, his preferences, his requirements for comfort. Year 3, month 8, I said no. The first no in our relationship, the first refusal, the first time I chose what I wanted over what he preferred. My best friend was getting married, destination wedding, Mexico, week-long celebration. I'd been looking forward to it for months, had the time booked off work, had my flights arranged, was excited, mentioned it to him casually one evening, said I'm leaving Thursday for Sarah's wedding. I'll be back the following Wednesday. He looked up from his book, said that's next week. I said yes. I told you about this months ago. It's been on the calendar. He said I didn't realize you were actually going to go. I said of course I'm going. She's my best friend. I'm in the wedding. He said a week is a long time. That's a long time to be apart. I said I know, but it's important. I haven't seen her in months. This is her wedding. He said I understand, but I was hoping you'd reconsider. I have that work conference that week. Was hoping you'd come with me instead. I said I can't. I committed to Sarah's wedding months ago. You knew about this, he said. I know, but the conference is important for my career. I really like you there. Can you talk to Sarah? See if you can just go for the weekend instead of the whole week. I felt the familiar pull, the automatic urge to accommodate, to say yes, to find a compromise that prioritized his needs, to make myself smaller to fit his preference, but something in me resisted, said no. I'm going to Sarah's wedding. I'm going for the whole week. I planned this is important to me. He went quiet the dangerous, quiet the quiet. That meant he was upset, disappointed, hurt. I waited for him to say something, to acknowledge my boundary, to accept my no. He didn't. He returned to his book, read in silence. The warmth in the room disappeared. The ease evaporated. The space between us became cold, tense, uncomfortable. That night he was distant, polite, but cold, answered questions with single words, didn't initiate conversation. Went to bed early without saying goodnight. I lay awake feeling wrong, feeling like I'd done something terrible, feeling guilty for choosing my friend's wedding over his preference. The guilt was automatic, was trained, was the result of 3 years of learning that his comfort mattered more than mine, that his preferences took priority, that my role was to accommodate, to make his life easy, to say yes. The no felt like betrayal. Felt like I'd broken an unspoken contract. Felt like I'd failed at being a good partner. The next morning, he was still cold, still distant, made his coffee in silence. Didn't acknowledge me. I said, "Are we okay?" He said, "We're fine." "Why wouldn't we be fine?" I said, "You seem upset about the wedding." He said, "I'm not upset. I just think it's interesting that you choose a week with your friends over supporting my career." I said, "It's not choosing friends over you. It's honoring a commitment I made months ago." He said, "Okay, if that's what you need to believe." Turned away, left for work without kissing me goodbye. The cold felt like punishment, felt like withdrawal of love, felt like this is what happens when you say no. The week before the wedding was tense, uncomfortable. He remained polite but distant, answered questions but didn't engage, performed the mechanics of relationship without any warmth. I felt myself wanting to apologize, wanting to cancel the trip, wanting to say I'm sorry. "I'll skip the wedding. I'll come to your conference instead." The urge to accommodate was overwhelming, was trained into me, was the path of least resistance, but I resisted, told myself I had the right to go, told myself this was important, told myself saying no to his preference didn't make me wrong, but the belief felt fragile, felt shaky, felt undermined by his coldness, by his withdrawal, by the clear message that my no had consequences. I went to the wedding, had a good time, celebrated my friend, but the whole week I felt guilty, felt wrong. Felt like I was doing something terrible by being there. Checked my phone constantly, sent him messages, tried to maintain connection. His responses were brief, cold, perfunctory, "Fine, okay, have fun." The coldness traveled across the distance, made the celebration feel hollow, made me feel like I was being punished, like I was paying for my no with his withdrawal, with the loss of his warmth, with the clear message that this is what happens when you choose yourself. I came home hoping the distance would be over, hoping we'd reconnect, hoping the cold would thaw. It didn't. He was polite, asked surface questions about the trip, didn't ask real questions, didn't engage with my stories, didn't show interest. The warmth didn't return. The ease didn't come back. We existed in the same space, but the connection was gone, had been withdrawn, had disappeared when I said no. I tried to talk about it, said, "I feel like you've been distant since I went to the wedding." He said, "I haven't been distant. I've been here. I've been fine. You're imagining things." I said, "I'm not imagining it. You've been cold, withdrawn, different." He said, "Maybe you feel guilty and you're projecting that onto me. Maybe this is about you, not me." The gaslighting was subtle, was effective, made me question my perception, made me wonder if I was imagining the coldness, if I was creating the distance, if this was my guilt manifesting as his punishment. But I knew I could feel the difference, could feel the absence of warmth, could feel that something fundamental had changed. And the change had started the moment I said no, the moment I refused to cancel my plans for his preference, the moment I chose what I wanted over what he wanted. Month later, I tested it, small test, wanted to see if my observation was accurate. He suggested we go to dinner at his favorite restaurant, the place we went every Friday. I said, "Actually, I'd like to try that new Thai place. Heard it's good." He said, "We always go to Antonio's on Friday." "It's our tradition." I said, "I know, but I'd like to try something different. Just this once," he said, "if that's what you want. We can go to the Thai place." His tone said it wasn't what he wanted. His energy said I was being difficult. We went to the Thai place. He was quiet the whole meal, polite but disengaged, answered questions minimally, didn't share stories, didn't engage. The meal felt like punishment, felt like this is what happens when you choose differently. I started noticing the pattern clearly. Every time I expressed preference that differed from his, every time I said no to something he wanted, every time I chose what I wanted over what he preferred, the warmth disappeared, the connection withdrew. He became cold, distant, polite, but emotionally absent the coldness. Lasted days, sometimes weeks, returned only when I'd sufficiently accommodated, sufficiently apologized, sufficiently demonstrated that I understood my mistake, understood that choosing myself was choosing wrong. I tried talking to him about it, said I noticed that every time I disagree with you or choose something different, you withdraw, you get cold. You punish me with distance. He looked genuinely confused, said I don't punish you, I don't withdraw. I just give you space to do what you want. If you want to go to Thai restaurants or week-long weddings, I support that. I just don't have to pretend to be happy about it. I said, but your unhappiness feels like punishment. Feels like I'm not allowed to want different things. He said you're allowed to want whatever you want. I can't control your feelings. If you feel punished, that's your interpretation. That's your issue, not mine. Year 4, I started documenting it, writing down each time I said no. Each time I expressed different preference each time. I chose what I wanted, and documenting his response, the pattern was undeniable, was consistent, was mechanical. Every no was met with coldness, with withdrawal, with days of distance, with the clear message that this is what happens when you don't accommodate. The documentation made it impossible to deny, impossible to gaslight myself, impossible to believe I was imagining it. The pattern was real, was systematic, was the mechanism that had kept me saying yes for 4 years. I showed the documentation to my therapist. She said this is a specific type of control. It's called withdrawal of affection. It's subtle, doesn't look like abuse, looks like normal relationship friction. But the pattern reveals the mechanism. He's training you through punishment, through withdrawal of love and warmth every time you assert yourself. The training is effective because the punishment is painful, because withdrawal of affection hurts, because coldness from someone you love feels unbearable. So you learn to avoid it, learn to say yes, learn to accommodate, learn to never refuse, because refusal costs too much. Costs his love, costs his warmth, costs the connection you need. She asked what I wanted to do. I said, I want to be able to say no without being punished. Want to be able to have preferences without losing his love. Want to be able to choose differently without days of coldness. She said, have you told him this? I said, yes, multiple times. He denies it says. I'm imagining it says it's my interpretation. She said, then you have a choice. You can stay and accept that saying no will always cost you his warmth, will always trigger withdrawal, will always be punished. Or you can leave, can choose yourself, can decide that you deserve to be loved even when you say no, even when you disagree, even when you choose differently. I tested one more time, bigger test, wanted to be absolutely sure before making decision. He wanted to take a 2-week vacation to visit his family across the country, wanted me to come. I said I can't take 2 weeks off work right now. Big project launching, critical timing. I can do 1 week, but not 2. He said my family is expecting you for the whole time. They've planned activities. They're excited to see you. I said, I understand, but I can't. Work won't allow it. Can you go for 2 weeks and I'll join you for the 2nd week? He said that defeats the purpose. The point is us being there together. If you can't come for the whole time, maybe you shouldn't come at all. I said I want to come. I want to see your family, but I can only do 1 week. He said, then I guess you're choosing work over my family. I said I'm not choosing. I'm trying to find compromise. He said compromise is you coming for 2 weeks. Anything else is you prioritizing work. I felt the familiar pressure, the automatic urge to say yes, to find a way to make 2 weeks work, to prioritize his needs over mine. But I said, no, I can't do 2 weeks. I'll come for 1 week or not at all, your choice. He chose not at all when alone, was cold before leaving, cold during the trip, cold when he returned, 3 weeks of coldness, 3 weeks of punishment for saying no, 3 weeks of clear message that this is what happens when you choose yourself. When I couldn't take it anymore, tried to reconcile, tried to apologize. He said there's nothing to apologize for. You made your choice. You chose work over family. That tells me what I need to know about your priorities. The coldness remained. The warmth didn't return. The connection stayed broken. Month 47, I made the decision. couldn't live with someone whose love was conditional on my yes, whose warmth was contingent on my accommodation, whose affection was withdrawn every time I said no, told him I was leaving. He seemed shocked, said, "I don't understand. What did I do wrong?" I said, "You punish me every time I say no. Every time I choose what I want over what you want, you withdraw, you get cold. You make me pay for having preferences." He said, "That's not true. That's your interpretation. I've never punished you. I just don't have to be happy when you choose things that hurt me." I said, "But that's the point. My saying no shouldn't hurt you. My having preferences shouldn't feel like rejection. My choosing myself sometimes shouldn't be interpreted as choosing against you. Healthy love doesn't withdraw when someone says no, doesn't punish refusal, doesn't make affection contingent on agreement." He said, "I can't help how I feel. If your choices hurt me, I'm allowed to feel hurt." I said, "You're allowed to feel hurt. You're not allowed to punish me for it. You're not allowed to withdraw love every time I don't do what you want. That's not love. That's control." He told people I left because I couldn't handle commitment, because I was too independent, because I couldn't compromise. People believed him because it sounded reasonable, sounded like relationship incompatibility, sounded better than the truth, which was that I left because I said no once and learned that his love was conditional, was contingent, was something I had to earn through perpetual accommodation, through never refusing, through making myself small enough to fit inside his preferences. 18 months out, I can say no freely, can express preferences without fear, can choose what I want without waiting for punishment. The freedom feels strange, feels unfamiliar, the training runs deep. I still catch myself about to say yes, automatically still feel the urge to accommodate, still expect coldness when I express different preference, but slowly, gradually, I'm relearning that no is allowed, that preferences are valid, that love that disappears when you say no wasn't love, was approval, was conditional acceptance, was something you had to earn rather than something freely given. Here's what I desperately wish someone had told me the first time he went cold after I refused something. The first time the warmth disappeared, the first time I felt punished for saying no, that pattern is the pattern. The first coldness is preview, is warning, is evidence of what's coming. If someone withdraws love when you say no once, they'll withdraw it every time. The mechanism doesn't change, doesn't improve, doesn't get better with time. It gets more entrenched, more automatic, more effective because you learn, you adapt. You start saying yes to avoid the punishment. And once you're saying yes automatically, they don't have to punish anymore. The training is complete. If you're reading this and you've learned to say yes automatically, if you avoid saying no because you know what happens when you do, if you felt love disappear over single refusals, single boundaries, single moments of choosing yourself, you're not in a relationship, you're in a system where love is conditional on compliance, where warmth is contingent on agreement, where affection is withdrawn as punishment. And that system isn't love, isn't partnership, isn't what you deserve. Regardless of how long you've been in it, regardless of how much you've invested, regardless of how hard it is to leave, love that disappears when you say no wasn't love, was approval you earned through accommodation, was conditional acceptance you maintained through perpetual yes. Real love survives disagreement, survives refusal, survives you choosing yourself sometimes. Real love doesn't withdraw when you have preferences, doesn't punish when you say no, doesn't make affection contingent on agreement. Real love lets you be whole, lets you want things, lets you refuse things, lets you exist at full size with full voice, saying no, and yes freely, without fear, without punishment, without loss. If this resonated, if you've discovered that love was conditional on your yes, the next video is crucial. It's called Everyone Said I Was Lucky. That's Why I Stayed. It's about what happens when everyone around you believes you have something precious, something rare, when they tell you constantly how lucky you are, how good he is, how you should never take him for granted, and how that external narrative becomes a trap. becomes a reason to stay, even when you're miserable, becomes pressure that makes leaving feel ungrateful, feel wrong, feel like throwing away something everyone else can see is valuable. That video shows how social pressure works with conditional love to create a cage you can't escape. Link is on screen now. It asks the piece that helped me understand why leaving felt impossible, even after I knew the love was conditional.